People talk about being high on life like it's some mysterious feeling, like it's reserved for like a few lucky people or something that you have to chase down and find. But honestly, I think a lot of it comes from removing things that are dragging your system down in the first place. What if I told you that underneath layers of accumulated stress, bad habits, unresolved problems, overstimulation, and unhealthy relationships, the feeling you've been chasing is already there? I'm not talking about being happy all the time, and I'm not talking about being excited every second of the day. I'm talking about like a natural sense of peace, energy, clarity, and being fully present in your life. And the thing that determines whether you can access that state or not is your nervous system. Your nervous system is the foundation of your entire experience. So poor sleep, constant stress, chaos, overstimulation, social media overload, junk food, unfinished problems. You can't feel good if your operating system is overloaded. A lot of people are looking for the next best thing that's going to make them feel alive, but they never stop to ask what might be suppressing that feeling in the first place. Because sometimes getting high on life isn't about adding more, it's about removing what has been weighing you down. I realized that this year I spent a lot of time trying to heal my nervous system, and that required me to be honest about my habits. For example, I used to stay up until midnight or 1 in the morning doom scrolling on social media. And looking back, those two things alone were keeping my nervous system from ever truly resting. I was carrying around like this low level anxiety all the time, and I just thought that was just how life felt. But then I was like, let me make some changes, right? And I began going to bed at the same time every night. I reduced social media. I cut down on a lot of the noise I was constantly feeding myself. And honestly, when I wake up now, it feels like a natural high. I feel rested. I feel peaceful. I feel recharged. What surprised me the most was realizing that a lot of the anxiety I thought I had wasn't actually coming from my life. It was coming from the constant stream of information I was consuming every day and the lack of sleep I was getting. But when I reduced, those junk inputs, my experience of life changed dramatically. I suddenly had like more energy, more creativity, more focus. I finally had a space for things I actually want to do. And that's when I realized something, that I wasn't actually anxious. I was overstimulated. And I wasn't missing anything either. My system just never really had the chance to like rest. So people often feel restless and assume that, they need more stimulation. So they'll go get, entertainment, more scrolling, more dopamine. But what if the thing you're looking for is buried underneath sleep deprivation, stress, chaos, unfinished problems, and constant noise? Your nervous system really does influence the quality of reality that you'll experience. So if life feels harder than it should, or, if people are more irritating than usual, or if problems feel a lot bigger than they actually are, it might be worth checking in with your nervous system first, not to see what needs to be added, but to see what can be removed. Another thing I've observed is systems. So I became kind of obsessed with systems this year because I realized motivation is unreliable. Motivation comes and goes. Some days you feel like doing the thing, and then some days you don't. But a system doesn't care how you feel that day. It just keeps producing the same outcome over and over again, right? What I realize is that a lot of people are waiting to feel motivated before they take action. But in my experience, it's actually the repeated action that creates motivation. It's the repeated action that creates the confidence. For example, I used to have really bad acne. When I finally got serious about my skincare, I didn't really do anything like revolutionary, and I didn't find some magic product. I just did the same routine over and over and over again for months. Eventually, my skin improved. That's compounding. I'll probably do a video on that in more depth, but that's essentially what compounding really is. It's not like this like mysterious thing. It's just small actions building on top of each other over time until one day you look up and you realize you're getting a completely different result than you were 6 months ago. And you can apply this to almost like anything. This is what I do. I apply it to my health, finances, confidence, relationships, creativity. The thing is, people make the mistake of creating these giant, complicated routines. Then they wonder why they can't stick to them. If your system is too, complicated, eventually you're going to stop using it. So what worked for me was making things simple, so simple that like I almost couldn't fail. And after a while, something interesting happens. Your brain begins to trust what is repeated. So you stop negotiating with yourself and you stop having the same internal argument every day. You stop asking, am I going to do it? Because, that's no longer a decision. It's just what you do. Eventually, the routine gets stored in the system and your brain knows what to expect. And it doesn't require the same amount of energy anymore. The behavior just becomes automatic. And honestly, I think that's another reason people feel disconnected from that natural high they're looking for. Their lives are built on constant decision-making, constant negotiation, constant friction. But when you have systems, you remove a lot of that friction. You free up energy, you free up attention, and that's when life starts feeling lighter. I stopped trying to change my life overnight and started trying to change my default. And surprisingly, that's what changed my life the most. And my last point, I think this is where life starts feeling different. Not because you won the lottery, not because you got famous, and not because everything's perfect, but life starts feeling different because you're finally regulated. You're keeping your promises to yourself. You're consistent. You're sleeping. You're getting rid of all that mental clutter. And because of that, your natural baseline finally has room to come forward. What I started to realize is that maybe, we're not constantly searching for happiness. Maybe we're searching for a return to our baseline. A lot of people think they're missing something. They think that they need more stimulation, more dopamine, more excitement, more entertainment. But what if the feeling you're looking for is already there? I believe it's there, and because when I started removing those things from my life, I didn't become like a different person. I actually felt more like myself, more present, peaceful, creative, alive. And that's what I think people get this idea of being high on life as some rare state that only certain people get to experience, but obviously that's not true. I think a lot of us are carrying so much interference that we've forgotten what our baseline feels like. So my question to you is, instead of asking, what can I add to my life? Maybe the better question is, what can you remove? Thanks for watching.